Cool.
I'm ready.
I'm recording, man.
All right. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Christ in Capital, the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. I'm the host, Dustin Johnson, and this episode, might I say, is going to be fantastic. With me today, I have Zach Vaught. And Zach, I did pronounce that right, correctly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Zach Vaught. So we connected a couple weeks ago on Facebook in one of the Christian entrepreneurs group, or one of them.
Yeah,
I'm involved in a couple of them, but
yeah.
So we got in touch. I was asking about things that people were doing, side businesses, side hustles, just things that people do as a career, things like that. And you chimed in, and you caught my attention because yours was a lot different than all the rest of them. So instead of me giving like your backstory, I just want you to kind of start us from the beginning, without telling people without me telling people what you are kind of involved in.
Right.
Start from the beginning of your story and bring us up to today. What are you doing?
Well, it all started on a really hot summer day in June of 1991. No, I'm kidding. And so the long short of it, man, is that God really got a hold of my life when I was 17 years old. I'd always spent my life in church. My mom drugged me to every church service every time the door was open. Wednesday night, Sunday morning, Sunday nights. She's the one that closes it down. She's the talker. And so I learned how to play the drums while she was talking. I learned how to do all kinds of stuff at the church. And but God radically changed my life at 17, kind of got a hold of me. And since that point, I've really felt a call to ministry and have been serving in the church and since that point. And I'm 29 today. So along with that, I've always kind of also had like an entrepreneurial itch, right? I've always kind of had a desire to build something, to grow something, to make stuff happen. And so right before my wife and I had our first child, she was in full nesting mode, and we're trying to get rooms ready and get furniture and stuff. And she's like, I really want you to build me this thing that she finds on Pinterest. And so it starts off, this is back in, I think, 2016. And I had some woodworking experience and stuff in high school. And I started, I jumped back into it. I bought a few tools. I built this little thing for her. We posted it on Facebook or Instagram or something, and all of her friends went crazy and they wanted them. And that kind of really kicked off like the woodworking side of my business that I own now. And so
that sounds familiar. That is, I know people that are doing that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be really valuable for a lot of people, especially in my context. But anyways, keep going. I didn't mean to interject.
Well, so what happened was, I'm actually still currently a student pastor, and I was running my woodworking business all at the same time. And just about a year ago, I'd made a lot of connections through, setting up wholesale accounts for my woodworking company and trying to grow it into something that's doing multiple six figures a year, and came in contact with a gentleman that had just bought a company, an antler chandelier company in my area. And he was needing a general manager, and he was looking for an equity partner as well. And so he had seen what I'd been able to do with my wood business, and, appreciated the spiritual side of my life, the integrity side of my life, and basically brought me on as a 30% equity partner in this antler chandelier business. Now, keep in mind, this antler chandelier business is doing about 10 times the amount of annual revenue that my woodworking business is doing. It's a well-established business, but just in the last year, we've actually been able to double sales in 1 year. We've gotten a couple of large accounts, Restoration Hardware. Some of your listeners may know who they are and may not, but they're really, really big in kind of the super high-end interior design space. Okay. And then also we just got signed up with Bass Pro Shops as well
that's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, we
are you still a partner in that business as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
So
awesome. So we're continuing to try to grow it, and we're growing faster than we can handle actually, and trying to keep everybody happy. And we've got several months of backlogged orders, and it's a better problem than not having any business, but it's
Yeah.
still a
Yeah.
problem, and you got to
Yeah.
solve it. So, but that's where I'm at today. And so today I'm a student pastor at my church, of our growing church. I also manage the day-to-day operations. I handle all the stuff that you open up the spreadsheet and it's like, 47 rows deep
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
columns deep, and it's like overwhelming. I'm the guy that like sits down and figures that kind of stuff out, and then
Wow.
basically manages the production side of things and our sales department, and oversees all of that. So
Okay. So what was I get so you got connected with this guy who was doing had this thing going, this business. What was your what was kind of the process when you were thinking about or when you guys were thinking about hiring more people? I don't know if he had people already hired whenever you came on, or
yeah,
what was that kind of
right. Well, man, it's a great struggle because every business is in business to be profitable, right? To make a
yeah.
difference and to be profitable. And so you're trying to squeeze blood from a turnip, so to speak, with every
Yeah.
employee, every system, every process you have, and you're trying to maximize what you've got. And so we are doing 7 figures a year right now with like 5 guys in our shop. And so we're needing to make that more like 8 guys in our shop. And it's really tricky because it's hard finding good people. And
Right.
I think the most important thing that you can do is create great culture. I really think that great culture trumps a lot of stuff. And if you have great culture, people will stay with you. They'll be loyal to you, even when they're in a hot shop working all day long, right?
Right.
But it's because you do small things like every afternoon you run and you go get everybody Sonic drinks, and you bring them Sonic drinks back.
Yeah.
It's about thinking more than just you get the work done. You're paid to be here, get the work
Right.
done. And I see that as a really fatal flaw in a lot of manufacturing companies, is that they let really profit override the people factor of the
Yeah.
business. And so,
Yeah. I mean, I definitely see that. I mean, I work in a corporate environment, and so like you can kind of, I mean, the culture is different everywhere you go, but you've got to have that kind of as your foundation. Otherwise,
right,
people are spending 50, 60 hours a week, in an environment they don't want to be in.
right.
um,
And it's just soul
but
sucking. I think we've all been
yeah.
there, like I think
Mhm.
everybody that has worked ever has been there at some point where it's just like, man,
Yeah.
like I would rather take less money and be somewhere I enjoy being than being in a bad environment. And
Yeah.
we lose sight of it sometimes as upper level management or as business owners, because we have a task at hand, and it's just so important to instead of whipping and pushing your people to a goal, being able to kind of pull them with vision, and
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what, kind of stepping back and looking at kind of you as in the entrepreneurial mindset, um, in your opinion, if you were back in, or if you were talking to yourself when you were just starting, when you're making those things in your garage, for your wife's friends, okay, the number one mistake that you think people should avoid, if there's people out there listening to this that are in a similar situation, what's your first go-to to say, hey, look, watch out for this, steer away from this, avoid this? What's the mistake that you think people should avoid?
This is a great question, man. This is the kind of stuff I wish I would have had when I was starting, because I made the mistakes, right? I think
Yep.
a lot of people fail when it comes to this concept or this idea in business that if I build it, they'll come. Like if I create it, it's kind of like the field of dreams idea, like, build it and they'll come. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, homie, they're
That's
not
like an
coming.
American mantra.
It's like just because you have the best product doesn't mean you're going to win. the
Right.
best product actually very rarely wins. It's those that are known that win. And so I think this is a really challenging thing in the Christian space as well, because it's like, well, how do I promote my stuff without coming across as braggy or boastful?
Hmm.
How do I promote myself in a way that gives God glory? And and that's probably the biggest mistake that I made. And one thing that's really difficult in entrepreneurial space, especially when you're by yourself and you're starting something by yourself in your garage. Number one, it's lonely. But number two, there's 100 things you could do. I mean, there's nobody there telling you
Right.
where your energy needs to be focused and what's going to move the
Yeah.
needle the most. So you're going to find yourself, and we all kind of, especially when we're first getting started, we have this tendency to self-sabotage a little bit, where we look at the things that are terrifying, and because they're terrifying, we don't want to do them, even though that's the single thing that if we did over and over and over and over and over, it would dramatically increase our results as business owners. Like, for example,
Yeah.
walking into businesses and handing them cards and shaking hands and telling them about your service, um, emailing potential clients, doing the hard stuff, doing the stuff that's scary. The most of the time when you're putting yourself in a position to where you could be rejected, that's probably the most valuable place you could be in, because you're sticking your neck out there. You're putting yourself
Yeah.
out there to either make something really big happen or fail miserably. But either way,
Class.
at
Yep.
least at least you're out there doing it. And
Right.
you can get stuck sitting on the computer trying to design a logo, or get stuck on the computer trying to figure out what your company culture is going to be all about, but it's just you in the garage. It's like, man, you got to have a viable company first. So
Yeah.
it's finding those like 2 to 3 things that you just need to do over and over and over, and like not letting anything else deter you from those things. I mean, like, if you need a logo and you're not a designer, you don't have an eye for it, go to Fiverr.com, pay $5 and have someone make
Yeah.
a logo for you, and don't worry about it
Yeah.
again. Like,
Yeah.
you need to do what you do best, and to the point where you create enough revenue that you can hire your first guy. And I heard this explained really well one time, where it was like, I tried to my goal was to get to $10,000 a month and then hire my first employee. And now I had 2 people to try to get back to $10,000 a month, right? Because you're losing that money
Yeah.
that you're paying your employee. And then you hire your third person, and then you got 3 people that try to get you back to
Hmm.
$10,000 a month. And that's kind of
Yeah.
the goal. Is when you first get started, there's 1,000 things that can pull you and that are going to pull you, and you're going to be like, oh, I control my schedule, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, well, when you're first starting, when you're first getting into this game, it's going to take everything you got. I mean,
Yeah.
I had somebody sit down with me, a mentor, that told me, this is going to be a lot harder than you realize. And I was just like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
I've been
I'm
able
up
to
for it.
yeah. Oh yeah. I've already settled that in my heart. I'm going to be just fine. And then I find myself 2 months later down 15 pounds because of stress, in my living room floor, crying out to God. Like, what did I do?
Mm.
How, God, I need your help. Like, just an absolute mess. And it's just something that you can't prepare yourself for until you're in the middle of it. But
Yeah.
I also can say that it's exactly where you're probably supposed to be, because you find yourself in a place where you're living on faith. I mean, you're living and trusting God, just as the Bible said. We don't live by sight, we live by faith. And so,
Right. Right. I think that's one thing that, when I was thinking about, a question to ask you related to kind of the external aspects of the business, like family life and church life and all this stuff. Um, you know, I think I wanted to ask you, what is kind of like something unique that you would um, advise a Christian entrepreneur that someone who's not a believer wouldn't necessarily have? Like, you wouldn't really necessarily approach them with this advice. Like, in your experiences, prayer, devotion, um, community, church community, what's kind of what would you advise the person who's a Christian entrepreneur who's wanting to dive into something like this?
man, you're a great interviewer, by the way. These are great questions. And so
Thank you.
I would say the thing that I struggled with, and maybe other Christians won't struggle with this, but I struggled with this. And it was this subconscious thought or action of like segregating my life and like having my family and God and church. But then when I got to my business, all of a sudden I felt like I had to carry this load all by myself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like God wasn't there to hear my every need in my business for some reason. And I think,
Right.
you definitely have to have skills like to run a business and own a business. Like you have to be able to hustle. You have to be able to devote time and energy and effort. You have to learn, constantly be learning. But the biggest mistake that I made was depending totally on my own mind and my own genius, or what I thought was genius. Uh, and instead of bringing every need to God by prayer and petition, bringing every hindrance, everything that would stand in the way of me hitting goals and me being able to provide for my family and those sorts of things. I just tried to just shoulder myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even it wasn't an intentional thing. It was very subconscious. It was very like, well, I'm the one that jumped out here on this ledge, so I got to figure this out. And
Right.
that would be the biggest advice I could give somebody else is just to not just start your day in prayer and say, oh, God, be with me, counsel me today, guide me, and then you jump off into the world trying to figure it all out on your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
It truly is moment by moment, second by
Yeah.
second, as you're talking to God as you're walking through your day.
I love it. That's one of my big things I like to push and kind of advocate to people is that we have this kind of sacred secular divide that we've had in our mind that's like, church over here, Bible over here, devotion over here, work life, all this other stuff over here. But if you're a believer, if you're a true believer, and you are you've been bought by the blood of Christ, you are redeemed, that's a whole life thing. That's not just that's not a help me when I'm down kind of thing.
Exactly.
It's not like a life raft, so to speak. It's an everyday thing. And I think a lot of Christians would probably benefit from what you just said, just saying, look, no matter what you're doing, no matter if you're, Paul, I think it's Paul that says, no matter what you do, do everything that you do to the glory of God. Like walk every day, do everything that you do, knowing that you're redeemed. You're a new creation in Christ. And I hope that people, Christians especially, that are in the commercial atmosphere, just in the job market, in the marketplace, are doing that, because we need to be influencers, right? We need to be people who are, the Proverbs say, skilled at our craft, so that we can stand before kings, so that we can be influencers in society. And so I hope that that's what people get from this. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, because it seems like you're, doing really well. And you, like, you're not ashamed. I mean, I look at your Facebook and you're just like, hey, look, this is who I am. I'm sold out. Right. So I really appreciate that about you. I want to jump back real quick and talk about, I was doing a little bit of snooping. So you're doing this thing, the business side, but you've also jumped into the information and content creation.
Yes. And I'm fired
so
about that.
Talk to me about that.
I'm excited about
so
it.
Yeah, talk to me about that. What was that like? When did you decide that you wanted to, because a lot of people think, one thing that gets me so excited, I used to listen to, and if this means anything to you, and don't judge me if it does, I used to listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. Yeah. And he, warning to anyone who's going to listen to him.
He's rough. He's very rough.
But one thing that he kind of opened my eyes to was just the opportunities we have to make money. Like there's so much opportunity available to you, and we don't see it a lot of the times. A lot of the times we think, okay, I've got to go to school, I've got to get this job, I've got to get in corporate, save up my 401k, and just keep getting better at what I do. But he made this analogy one time. He's like, look, if you like Alf, the cartoon or the puppet, start an Alf blog and blog every day, and then get people to read your blog, and then become an Alf expert. and then people will pay you for your expertise on ALF.
Ow.
Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, and I'm thinking about that. I'm like, I mean, it's true. And you see it in certain aspects where, like where guys are going in and they're devoting themselves to their craft and they're doing what they do really well. And they're, churning out the products, and they're getting cash flow and all that stuff.
Right.
And then they say, hey, look, I've got the knowledge, I've got the experience, and I've got this stuff,
Yeah.
this intangible product that I can monetize. Like, people will pay for this. And so I think that's what you're doing, but can you just kind of talk to us about what that was like?
Yeah, for sure. It's something that I've tinkered with for a very long time, and just very recently have I kind of gone all in on it. Here's the thing: is there's a point in your entrepreneurial career where you get really tired of trading time for money. Like, you just get real tired of, man, if I'm going to build this thing or sell this thing, it's going to take this many hours of my time.
Right.
And so you hire somebody, right? And so now you're leveraging an employee's time, which they need a job. They're fired up to have the job. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Right.
So, but then what really interests me about the information space is the business model is just so scalable. And it's like, man, I love making a difference. Like, more than selling anything, like whether I sell someone an antler chandelier or a dining table or that sort of thing, like, we could dig deep down in there in the marketing messaging and find out how I'm making someone's life better, and I'm providing a place for a family to sit down and eat dinner together. Right. And there's some legitimate truth to that, but you got to really dig, So,
yeah.
But when I'm teaching somebody how to start a business that knew nothing about business, and in 8 weeks, they know everything they need to know to run a legitimate business, that changes somebody's life. Like, they're struggling financially, and, they're making $7.25 an hour. They're stuck on food stamps, they're stuck on welfare, and they dive into this online education that allows them to start a woodworking business in their garage. And that woodworking business is now making them $4,000 a month, 8 months later, right?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, that's tangible change. And I'm just, I'm a teacher at heart. I just love seeing people, like, the light bulb go off in their mind. Just being in that space has forced me to level up too, forced me to level up on my knowledge, because I encounter questions from students and people that I teach that I haven't thought of that. Let me figure that out so I can give you a really good answer. And so,
that's kind of scary when you're selling your, like, experience, and you're like, what if I get, like, one of these prodigies, or, like, one of these, like, people who, like, know exactly what they're talking about.
Yes. And
but it's good.
So, one guy I really look up to in the marketing space is Russell Brunson. He's ClickFunnels guy. But when it comes to just pure marketing, and it's not like, the thing I love about him is he's not slimy. Like, he's not like this guy that I'm going to pull the wool over your eyes so you'll buy my product. It's like, I understand really clearly what your needs are, and I know how to put together a package that exceeds your expectations. And so we're a match made in heaven, baby. Like, we're going to make this thing, like, I have exactly what you need, and I know what you need based on your life experience, based on your interests, based on the stuff that you walk through, and where you want to go. And I can be the guy that helps get you there. And
is your product, so tell the people about your product. Like, is it a course?
Yes. So it's an 8-week online course. It's called Handmade Hero Academy. And I actually, like, last week, just put the final finishing touches on this thing. I've been working on it for like 20 months, man. I've been working on this thing for a long time. There's tons of video content, tons of PDFs, things like that. And I actually haven't even promoted it yet. Like, you're the sneak peek, like.
Sweet. Episode 20, the first sneak peek of Handmade. What was it called?
Handmade Hero Academy.
Okay, we'll tag it in the show notes.
Awesome. Handmade Hero Academy. But as of right now, I've created a Facebook group that I'm growing. I have an ebook. I have a podcast
Yep.
that really is just helping people take those very first steps. And then the course is really kind of like, this is everything I know. This is everything I got. This is how you go from nothing to a company that does, 15 to 25 to $35,000 a month in sales, um, pretty pretty easily with the right
Yeah.
marketing in place and things like that. So
And the thing is, I think a lot of people, or at least my take, whenever I think of, before I got into like the entrepreneurship side, I'm not technically an entrepreneur, but that's my interest. Like people going out and just actually making stuff and doing stuff and building their businesses and all that stuff. Um, you look at the intangible, like knowledge, expertise side, information, you know, marketplace, and it's like, what is that really going to do for me? It's just some people telling me what to do, kind of stuff. But I think people need to understand how valuable your own human capital is.
yeah,
That is like the number one thing that you can invest in, because
yeah,
it's not going to fluctuate with the market. It's not subject to the risks of the typical marketplace. If the more you invest in yourself and building your knowledge, building your experience,
yes,
that's the stuff that cannot be touched by fluctuations and downturns and depressions and all this stuff. And so that's what I think is really exciting about kind of what you're doing,
yeah.
providing
And
that kind of in the door thing for people who are in this space.
yeah, just to second that too. It's one of those things where I heard that, that you see that everywhere. The most important investment you can ever make is in yourself. Like you follow any entrepreneurial Instagram pages, they say that. And it's like, yeah, 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 yeah. Like that's kind of how you feel about it, But then
Yeah.
then you start doing it and you actually realize, like today, if everything was taken from me, like I actually know how to start and grow a business in 30 days to where it's profitable. I could
Right.
be back on my feet in 30 days. And it's because of investing into myself. It's because of the investment that I've made into courses. And it's one of those things where it's like, well, that's just, you see, well, look, that's a lot of money. That's several $100s, or there's some courses out there, masterminds that are thousands of dollars. And it's like,
Right.
well,
The
based on
return on it is
based on the information that you're given, man, I took a Facebook ads course that was like $100 a month, and I took it for like 4 months. So I spent $400 on Facebook ads, like learning Facebook ads. I've made, my business has made a couple $100,000s off of
really
running Facebook ads. And
awesome.
it's one of those things where it's crazy the ROI that you get on knowledge
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
answers stuff that would have. It's like, okay, I can spend all this time and all this energy and effort trying to learn it myself. Or what if I just go spend the money and learn it in 4 weeks or 4 months or however long that is? And it's crazy the difference that it will make
Yeah.
in your life. Just saying, you know what, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to spend the money because I believe that the ROI on this is going to be so great that I'm going to make this back tenfold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold.
Yeah. You've got to be like forward looking. You've got to see what's the ROI in the future
Right.
compared to, but people get caught up in the immediate price tag and they're
Right.
like, It's like the same thing with these phones. It's like $1,000. People are like, how can you spend $1,000 for this phone? It's like, do you understand what this thing does?
And allows me to do. Right.
This is the cheapest thing that you could buy. It
Yeah.
just in
Yes.
my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, awesome. So okay, so I know we probably don't have a whole bunch of time. Um, just as a kind of little side thing, I was wondering, you guys are in the you're in wholesale, or you're getting into retail,
So
right?
we do a little bit of both.
Okay. Do you were first in wholesale? Is that how that worked?
So my wood business is primarily retail. I primarily run
Okay.
Facebook ads to the end consumer, sell it to customers, put them in their homes.
Okay.
Antlerworks has built their business, and we primarily sell wholesale to other businesses who then sell to end consumers.
Okay. Okay. Was social media a big thing for Antlerworks? Like, it seems like it would be different for retail versus wholesale. And just for the listeners, if they don't know, wholesale is going to be you go to people who are reselling your product, they may give you more of a stable income in
Correct.
a sense
Yeah.
versus retail, which is just, you go out, get all your leads, get all your
Right.
sales. But I
Yeah.
imagine retail, there's a lot more social media, like go get it kind of thing versus wholesale. Is that kind of
Yes.
a fair?
You're right on the money there. The
Okay.
only other thing that I would add is like Antlerworks hasn't built their business. We haven't built Antlerworks on social media. We haven't built Antlerworks um, wholesale side on social media. But who am I to say that you can't? You know,
Yeah.
like let's say you make home decor items or you make clothing. You could get on Instagram and you can message every boutique in the country and say, hey, I'm a wholesaler. These are my products. I would love to send you a sample. And you could leverage Instagram DMs on like a crazy level, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a thousand ways to skin a cat, really. Like I'm from the South, if you haven't noticed, and so I'm using all these weird
No, I mean, hey,
analogies.
I'm technically in the South as well, so
Yeah, and
I understand.
but there's no right or wrong way to do something. The most important thing I could say is that when you find something that you like doing, you think it's going to work, be consistent at it. Don't spend a day sending Instagram DMs and then a day trying to send emails, and then a day doing cold calls, and then a day doing this. Like find the thing and then just hammer it. Like do that and
Yeah.
then build that up to where it's consistent and you're getting results from it, and then add something on to
Yeah.
from on the side. And so
Okay.
so to answer your question, Antlerworks really didn't build their business through social media, but
Yeah.
it's very possible to build a wholesale business today through social media, connecting with other retail stores or even online brands.
Right. And with I don't know when Antlerworks started, but with the whole like social media like craze, it's one of those things where you really have to find where where your customers are. Like
Yeah.
if you're selling like wood products for like newly married couples or something like that, yeah, go to social media. That's where your
Right.
market's going to be. But if you're like selling to wholesale, maybe going into the place and giving them your card and then whatever, emailing the wholesaler or something like that may be your best shot. But it's those things you got to like think about, like where's my customer, how do I reach them, what
Exactly.
do they like, that kind of thing.
Right.
So, well, awesome, man, this was really really fun. Where can people get you? Where can they get in contact with you?
So they can find me on social media. It's Zach Vaught _ for Instagram. And then you can join my Facebook group on Facebook, all about starting your own woodworking business. And it's just Start Your Woodworking Business. You just type that in, Start Your Woodworking Business.
Okay.
And then lastly, you can just find me at my own website, just zachvaught.com.
Okay.
And that's going to have more of my information, product stuff on it. You can download my ebook and stuff like that there.
Okay. Awesome. Go get the ebook, everybody that's listening. Go get it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Yeah. If you have any other last things you want to kind of throw out there, feel free. But
man, I feel like I should have a really witty, just like a
outro.
really, like all men die, but not all men really live, or, just something that just really
Hey,
brings it
there you go.
home.
The zinger.
Yeah. I guess, man, just the thing that I would just encourage people with is just to go for it. Like there's so many times that we have a dream or we have an ambition or we have something that God's put in our heart and we're afraid to leave a job that offers us security. And so
Security.
you
Yeah.
will choose security your whole life over the dream that God gave you. And some of the greatest stories you'll ever tell your kids or your grandchildren are when you were completely dependent upon God, taking a step of faith, doing what God's called you to do. And
Yeah.
so I think that the greatest thing that I could leave with your listeners is really just if they feel, a lot of times we feel like we need permission to do something. Well, when you're an entrepreneur, you're not asking anybody other than God and your wife. You better ask your wife.
Yes. Yes. First and
But
foremost.
but but I would just encourage people to go for it, man. Just to if God's put it in your heart, if you have a desire for it, if you can't stop thinking about it for like long periods of time, then there's probably a reason, and there's probably a need for you in the marketplace. And so, and don't discount yourself. Don't discount your past. Don't discount your ability.
Education,
Yes.
experience,
Or lack thereof.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
Like
I'll be the first to tell you, I have a higher level of education than most people, and it's not to boost, not to like puff myself up or anything, but you don't need it. You really don't. Like, just do it. There's so much opportunity. Just dive in, and
Absolutely.
you're the person that people need to hear that from, because you're the one who's actually like taken the giant leap. But yeah, don't discount yourself. I hate when people like, you know, especially in my context, people think, you know, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I, you know.
Yeah. Well, I don't have a certification in that, or I don't have a degree.
Yeah.
And it's like, man,
yeah,
that's waiting on permission. That's giving yourself a reason why you can't, instead of looking for reasons that you can. Right. You know, I mean, if it's like CPR, yeah, you probably need to know how to save somebody's life. But if it's like starting a business, you don't have to go to business school to start a business.
Right.
You don't have to go get $50,000-$60,000 in debt to start a business. Like read like 3 books and listen to a podcast every day at lunch, and you'll know if you need to start a business. Like,
oh man, don't get me started on podcasts. Like,
yeah,
that industry, or that information channel is going places. I've learned so. Anyways, we'll just leave it there, because that's a whole nother episode.
This is episode 1 with Zach Vaught. So next week we're gonna have episode 2.
That's awesome.
Dustin,
all right. Well,
man.
Yeah, man. I'll have to have you on again. I really appreciate it. I like having the true entrepreneurial input into all this stuff. So I'll keep you in the books.
Sweet. I'll take it.
All right, everybody. I hope you liked this episode. Remember, go out, go love God, love neighbor, and build something. Talk to you later. Awesome.
Fantastic, man.